앞으로 많은 사랑과 관심 부탁드려요. 한국 바로 알리기에
함께해 주세요.
For thousands of years, one breath has endured. More than a martial art, it is the Korean way of life. Taekwondo, connecting the world. Smarter than ever, Taekwondo leaps toward a new future, connecting the world through a single movement. The spirit of Korea meets the boundless energy of K-pop. No longer just a sport, Taekwondo is at the heart of K-culture, bringing Korea's spirit to the world. A beautiful culture, connecting heart to heart. We now strive to safeguard Taekwondo's community training culture as a treasured heritage for all humanity. The pride of Korea, Taekwondo.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. U.S. President Donald Trump says Washington is low-keying it with Iran negotiations and signals a willingness to allow economic pressure on the country to mount. Meanwhile, Iran is demanding that the U.S. compensate Tehran for damage, while stressing the Strait of Hormuz will remain closed until Washington changes behavior. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says North Korea appears ready to send more troops to support Russia in its war against Ukraine. He says the number could range from 30,000 to 50,000 additional troops. The extreme heat that's been scorching South Korea has taken a brief pause, with Seoul's over 2-week streak of tropical nights finally coming to an end. But the hot weather is expected to continue throughout the week, while the indirect effect of several typhoons could bring heavy rainfall and more unpredictable weather conditions. U.S. President Donald Trump says the United States is partially negotiating with Iran while signaling a cautious approach to the situation. Iran, meanwhile, has stepped up its demands, calling on Washington to compensate it for war-related damages. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Sunday that the United States is low-keying it in terms of its approach to Iran, signaling that Washington would rely on mounting economic pressure rather than launching a new military offensive. Such remarks came during a phone call with Axios, saying the U.S. is only semi-negotiating with Iran. Trump said that the U.S. is just watching with Iran suffering from massive inflation and is without money, saying that Iran is in a very difficult situation economically, even lacking the funds to pay its soldiers. Trump added that the U.S. naval blockade of Iran has further worsened the economic crisis. Regarding the ongoing tug-of-war in negotiations, Trump said the situation would work out well, as it always does, like a chess game. This comes after Iran announced a list of demands for Washington to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Mohammad Bagher, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, demanded the lifting of the U.S. naval blockade and the withdrawal of U.S. forces from the region. Tehran also demanded that the U.S. compensate Iran for damage caused by what Tehran described as 2 wars of aggression and lift all sanctions and unconditionally release Iran's frozen assets. The official stressed that the strait will remain closed until the U.S. changes its behavior. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi repeated the terms while adding that Washington and Tehran are not engaged in talks, adding while speaking to reporters that Tehran will not start them as long as Washington breaches an interim deal signed in June.
From our perspective, until the violations of the Memorandum of Understanding and the U.S. compensates for what it has violated in the memorandum, there is no possibility of restarting negotiations.
In terms of the agreement on the Strait of Hormuz between Iran and Oman, he said they were in the final stages but would not reopen the waterway unless the conditions are fulfilled. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
And now for a closer look at the latest situation in the Middle East, we're joined today by Professor Hassan Khan, visiting professor at the Institute of Middle East Studies at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Professor Khan, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
So Iran now says the Strait of Hormuz won't open until the U.S. corrects its behavior. And some analysts say Iran aims to damage Trump politically by dragging out these war. Is prolonging the war actually more beneficial to Iran?
Well, actually, up to the point, yes, but not prolonging the war itself. It's prolonging the negotiation process itself that benefits Iran more. So Iran's strongest remaining leverage here now is the Strait of Hormuz, as we all know, by keeping the Strait of Hormuz restricted, Iran keeps economic pressure on the whole world and especially on the United States through energy prices, and creates also political pressure on President Trump himself ahead of the upcoming midterm elections. So at the same time, Washington is facing pressure over the duration of this war. It's like prolonging for a long time. And the conception of high-end weaponry. So this gives Iran an incentive not to finish this or settle settle during these negotiations for less or too quickly. So, but I would not say that Iran's main objective is simply to hurt Trump. I think that the most important objective here is to convert American political urgency to end this war into strategic concessions. They want sanction reliefs, blockade relief, and future Strait of Hormuz status for Iran. So Iran now is explicitly linking the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz to the U.S. Change of behavior. So the danger here for Iran is that prolonging this war might damage Iranian economy badly, and infrastructure as it's doing right now. So Iran's optimal strategy is like control delay, so like enough to strengthen its position on the negotiation table, but not indefinite war that would hurt its economy permanently.
I see. And Iran and Oman say they're working on a deal now to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. So what do you make of the details that have emerged so far about this potential deal?
The important point here is that this is not yet an agreement to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. It's just a technical agreement on how to operate the ships or the lanes through the Strait of Hormuz. It's primarily an agreement about how ships will go and come in from the Gulf. So Iran and Oman have reached an understanding on the code on how to coordinate of new shipping lanes. Under the proposal discussed so far, Iran would have a considerable authority over vessels entering the Strait of Hormuz, while Oman would have the upper hand on the rule of outbound from the Strait of Hormuz. So that matters because Iran now is trying to build a new system for the post-war, different from the pre-war. So from the pre-war, it was like unrestricted navigation through the Strait of Hormuz, but now it will be authorized and restricted by Iran. Oman is essentially providing technical framework, while the real political bargain on how to open the Strait of Hormuz is still between Iran and the United States.
All right, and meanwhile, Saudi Arabia says the mutual defense deal is signed with Pakistan and Turkey is not aimed at against any third country, but some analysts say this reflects growing concerns towards an unpredictable U.S. government, while other analysts say the pact fits within Washington's goal of greater burden sharing among allies. What are your thoughts on this?
This is a very important one because I see it primarily as a strategic hedging. The Gulf states, especially Saudi Arabia, depend heavily on hedging when it comes to international politics. So it's just a kind of hedging rather than it's an anti-American alliance. After all these three countries are great allies of the United States. So the agreement is significant because an attack against one member of this agreement is considered an attack against all three members. It's similar to NATO system. So it also established institutional mechanisms, including ministerial committee and permanent secretariat in Saudi Arabia. So they are doing very well. However, it does not automatically require a specific military response. The members would still consult on how to respond, how to assist each other, not basically sending troops or maybe just sending assistance. So the timing is good. The timing of this agreement is really important here. The Iran conflict has demonstrated how vulnerable the Gulf states can become when regional security depends heavily on the United States decisions. So Saudi Arabia, for example, have an incentive to diversify its security partnership. Turkey also has the industrial capability, defense capabilities. Pakistan have the sustainable conventional military capacity, and Saudi Arabia, as we all know, will bring the financial and strategic resources. So this partially supports the United States' preference for greater burden sharing system that they have been calling for. But it's also reflecting increasing regional strategic autonomy or autonomy from the United States decisions. So it's not a rejection of the United States. It's we can call it insurance against the excessive dependence on the United States.
I see. All right, Professor Khan, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Seoul's 17-day streak of tropical nights has finally come to an end as the record-breaking heat eases slightly. But temperatures will remain high this week, while the indirect effects of several typhoons could bring sudden downpours and more unpredictable weather. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
The record-breaking heat has eased somewhat, bringing an end to 17 straight nights of tropical nights in Seoul. Heat wave alerts have also been downgraded or lifted in parts of the greater Seoul area and the Chungcheongdo provinces. However, hot weather is expected to continue this week, while the indirect effects of several typhoons could bring more unpredictable conditions. Temperatures have fallen nationwide as hot easterly winds weakened, prompting authorities to ease heat wave alerts across parts of the capital region, the Chungcheongdo provinces, and Gyeongsang-Bukdo province. But the extreme heat is only taking a brief pause. Daytime highs will still hover around 35 degrees, while southern regions continue to experience hot and humid nights. A series of typhoons is also indirectly affecting weather conditions on the Korean peninsula. Typhoon Dolphin is making landfall in China. Typhoon Kujira has dissipated, and Typhoon Chanhom is heading toward Japan. Although none is expected to directly hit Korea, they could disrupt regional pressure patterns and increase uncertainty over winds and rainfall. Heavy rain that hit Ulchingun County in Gyeongsang-Bukdo province on Sunday was caused by moisture pushed northward by Typhoon Dolphin. Weather analysts say the typhoons are expected to reshape the overall pressure pattern across East Asia, making weather conditions more volatile.
As the East Asian pressure system is expected to be reorganized overall due to the influence of typhoons and other factors, I would say there's a certain degree of volatility.
Central regions are expected to remain mostly sunny this week, but areas along the East Coast could see torrential rain along the edge of a high-pressure system. Inland areas could also experience sudden, localized downpours due to atmospheric instability. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And as the scorching heat continues, more people are heading indoors to escape the sweltering weather. With shopping, dining, and entertainment all under one roof, malls are becoming a go-to summer treat for visitors of all ages. Our Hong Seo-jung has more.
People are lining up one after another to enter the theater. As showtime approaches, more and more visitors are rushing inside. Even though it's a weekday morning, the theater is filled with people seeking refuge from the heat.
I think watching a movie in a spacious, comfortable indoor setting is probably the best way to deal with this kind of heat and humidity.
Rather than traveling long distances for a summer getaway, many visitors say going to the theater is their preferred way to beat the heat.
It's definitely much better than staying at home. I don't really want to go too far, so somewhere close by is perfect.
The theater is located inside the massive shopping mall. 3 floors below, giant character balloons soar above the atrium. A themed pop-up store has become another popular attraction, drawing families and children on their summer break.
It's air-conditioned, there are plenty of dining options, and lots of activities for kids. That's why I'd recommend spending the day at the mall.
With something for everyone to enjoy, the mall is attracting a wide range of visitors. Families with children are flocking to the pop-up attractions, while other shoppers take the opportunity to browse the stores.
I think we'll check out some pop-up stores with the kids, do some shopping, and then head home. It's a great place for the whole family.
As lunchtime approaches, diners flock to the food court where cold dishes such as naengmyeon or Korean cold noodles help cool down the heat. From July 27th to August 6th, average daily attendance stood at about 55,000 on weekdays and 110,000 on weekends. The first weekend of August alone attracted around 220,000 visitors, up 10% from the first weekend of the previous month. As the weather outside is baking hot, indoor spots like malls and movie theaters seem to be popular places to hang out this summer. Hong Seo-jung, Arirang News.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says North Korea appears ready to deploy an additional 30,000 to 50,000 troops to support Russia in its war against Ukraine. In an interview cited in a post on X on Sunday, Zelenskyy said the number of North Korean personnel appearing in Russia has grown from hundreds to thousands, and that a decision has now been made to deploy tens of thousands more. Zelenskyy also called for closer cooperation between South Korea and Ukraine in response to the growing military ties between Pyongyang and Moscow. He said Kyiv is seeking support from Seoul in areas including air defense systems and drones. One doctor's legacy continues to inspire young dreamers in South Korea. An exact replica of a women's health clinic from the 1970s has drawn more than 150,000 visitors over the past decade. Our Kim Sa-young has the details.
Step inside, you are transported back to the 1970s. This is an exact recreation of the Women's Health and Childbirth Clinic, where Dr. Lee Gil-ryo opened their very first practice back in the 1970s. The crowded waiting rooms, the urgency of deliveries, and the tireless dedication of doctors working with limited resources. From medicine, Dr. Lee went on to make her mark in education, culture, and community service, becoming a role model for generations to come.
Seeing this made me want to become a doctor and help people in need.
Dr. Lee has done so much. I want to be like her someday.
Now in its 10th year, the hall may be small, but on weekends, it draws hundreds of visitors. Children can try on doctor's coats and experience what it's like to be a medical professional firsthand.
This is a place where children can explore what it truly means to pursue a career in medicine. It's become an invaluable resource for young people.
For many Incheon families, it's become a must-visit destination where history, medicine, and inspiration all come together. Kim Seoyoung, Arirang News.
Damaged mushrooms that would normally be sold at a steep discount are now being transformed into healthy snacks, such as mushroom jerky or mushroom jam. Our Tae-young reports.
This is mushroom jerky, made from dried, sliced, and seasoned oyster mushrooms. No meat is included. It is becoming popular as a healthy snack for its chewy texture and cholesterol-lowering properties. Damaged mushrooms have been utilized for snacks, rising as a new source of income at farms.
It is healthy for anyone and edible for elders. That's why we made this product.
That is not the end of the mushroom's transformation. The jam made with roasted songhwa mushrooms gives a scent of natural chocolate. Mushroom powdered seasoning has also been created, raising the taste.
The taste is quite different depending on the kind of mushroom. It was interesting to check the chocolate smell from it.
Gyeonggi-do Agricultural Research and Extension Services has finished transferring patent technology for processing mushrooms to 4 different farms and commercializing processed mushrooms.
We will be fully supporting technology development to improve the quality of the product or marketing method, like packaging.
Mushrooms, which used to be mere ingredients for side dishes, are gaining a growing presence as a high-value product. Cha Yoon-kyo, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he will not accept President Trump's latest plan for Gaza. Netanyahu told his cabinet on Sunday that no troops will leave Gaza until Hamas gives up its weapons. The 15-point roadmap has Israeli forces pulling back as Hamas disarms arms, with an international force and new Palestinian police taking over security. On the ground, Israel last week scaled back its attacks and targeted killings. Hamas says it is still committed to the roadmap and wants Washington to press Netanyahu to follow it. Netanyahu faces an election on October 27th. In Ireland, one of the world's most wanted men was charged on Sunday with directing a criminal organization. Alleged crime boss Daniel Kinahan appeared in a Dublin court just hours after the United Arab Emirates handed him over. The 49-year-old was arrested in Dubai in April. He was flown home on an Irish government jet on Sunday and taken straight to a rare Sunday night hearing under armed guard. Kinahan was remanded in custody. 4 years ago, the United States named him a leader of the Kinahan crime group and offered $5 million for his arrest. In China, more than 1 million people have been evacuated from their homes as Typhoon Dolphin made landfall on Sunday. It is the most powerful storm to hit the country this year. Dolphin made landfall near Yuzhuan in Zhejiang province late Sunday afternoon with winds of about 150 kilometers an hour. Forecasters warn of up to 500 millimeters of rain in parts of the province through Monday, with risk of flooding and landslides. The city of Wenzhou evacuated more than 900,000 residents, and Fujian province evacuated nearly 99,000 people. Flights have been canceled across the region, including around 1,500 flights in Shanghai. Before reaching China, Typhoon Dolphin swept over Japan's Okinawa Islands, injuring 6 people and cutting power to more than 50,000 buildings. Forecasters say the storm will slow as it moves inland, keeping the rain falling for days. In the United States, former President Joe Biden's prostate cancer has spread. His son Hunter Biden said in an interview on Friday that the cancer has spread to his bones and is very painful and debilitating. The 83-year-old was diagnosed with an aggressive form of the disease in May of last year. His wife Jill says Joe Biden will live with cancer for the rest of his life. Hunter Biden says his father will keep fighting as long as he is alive.
The intense, record-breaking heat wave that gripped the peninsula has finally lost some of its steam. Seoul has escaped from the long run of tropical nights, but don't put away your summer gear just yet. Afternoon highs will still be in the low 30s in many places with that high humidity. And as Typhoon Dolphin moves away, cooler northeasterly winds are flowing in, while moisture from the typhoon is bringing more rain along the east coast. That means if you're in the east and heading to the beach or coastal areas, please stay away from breakwaters and rocky shores. And this afternoon, Seoul and Gwangju will be getting up to 33 degrees Celsius. Chuncheon, Daegu, Busan will make it to 32 degrees with sunnier skies expected for central parts of Korea. So while we have passed the worst of the extreme heat, summer is still very much in charge. Meanwhile, those on the east coast will see more rain in the middle of the week.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
For thousands of years, one breath has endured. More than a martial art, it is the Korean way of life. Taekwondo, connecting the world. Smarter than ever, Taekwondo leaps toward a new future, connecting the world through a single movement. The spirit of Korea meets the boundless energy of K-pop. No longer just a sport, Taekwondo is at the heart of K-culture, bringing Korea's spirit to the world. A beautiful culture, connecting heart to heart. We now strive to safeguard Taekwondo's community training culture as a treasured heritage for all humanity. The pride of Korea, Taekwondo.
It may have been the tomb of a young prince. Kmyongchong Tomb, one of Shila's ancient burial mounds. The gold crown and belt discovered here were notably smaller than those found in other tombs. The Shila royal family is believed to have carefully prepared the tomb for a young life that ended too soon, placing a variety of grave goods within. Among the many artifacts, one pair of objects in particular draws the eye. Earthenware figures that seem as if they might gallop off at any moment. Look closely, and you'll notice the two figures are slightly different. Did you spot the difference? One exudes authority, wearing an ornate headdress and full armor. The horse, too, is richly adorned with elaborate harnesses. In contrast, The other figure appears plainly dressed, with hair tied in a top knot and a cloth wrapped around the head. Based on their attire and size, the more elaborate figure is presumed to be the tomb's occupant, while the simpler one appears to be a servant. So what exactly are these pottery figures which vividly reflect the everyday life of Shilla people? They are, in fact, hollow vessels, pitchers. Water could be poured in through a funnel at the horse's rear and dispensed through a spout at its chest. Then why would the Shilla people place such intricate vessels in a tomb of a young prince? Perhaps it was a heartfelt wish that the young prince whose life was cut short would never go thirsty on his long journey to the heavens.
The Korean wave is drawing more fans from all over the world. Local consumer prices continue to hover at the 2% success rate in April.
Turning to robots to allow the visually impaired the chance to better indulge in cultural experiences, like the number of hybrid cars are registered in South Korea has surpassed 2 million using its locally developed Yuri rocket.
Arirang.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Monday, August 10th here in Seoul. I'm Lee Soo-jin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Higher.
Great today.
Great to have you. We also have Q with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in, and both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So we're kicking off a new work week with a look at a Korean series that's sparking conversations both in Korea and also around the world. So Netflix's Teach You a Lesson has made it into top 10 in 48 countries, bringing attention to a fictional world where a government agency uses punishment and retribution to restore order in schools. So while the school obviously does take a bit of an extreme approach, it touches on very real debates surrounding school violence, teacher authority, and how far society should go to protect the education system. So you obviously didn't grow up in a Korean school education system. So what did you think of this drama series?
First of all, I absolutely enjoy this Korean series. I was fully immersed in it up until the last episode. And like you said, I didn't attend any of the schools here in Korea, and I only actually heard about what schools were like in the past and currently in Korea, here in Korea. So growing up in Australia and receiving primary, secondary, and tertiary education, it was almost like a culture shock watching the series. Now, the biggest difference would have to be the amount of influence parents had in schools and over teachers, seeing how a student can get away with like many wrongdoings just because of their parents' social status is something unheard of here back in Australia. Also, the lack of respect some students showed towards their teachers seemed a little too extreme at first, but then I know it wasn't all fictional and made up, because it was all over in the news in Korea a couple of years ago where, you know, students were actually being very violent towards teachers and showed actually little to zero respect. Now, It clearly showed that the teachers' rights here in Korea was slowly depreciating, and it's a serious matter, and this drama obviously depicted it in a very clear, straightforward way, and those two things were personally like a bit of a shock to me at first because like I said, I didn't attend school here in Korea, and it was very different to how I actually grew up back in Australia.
Right, so unlike you actually went to a school in Korea growing up. So do you feel like this was an accurate depiction? What were your thoughts watching the film?
Yes, so first I also really enjoyed teaching lesson series as well. And I think actually some parts were exaggerated to make the story more dramatic. But at the same time, the series is actually based on the real issues. So I think it reflects quite a lot of what Korean schools are actually like today. When I was in school in Korea, school violence was actually less serious than what we see in the series. Teachers also had more authority and parents were not as involved in schools as they seem to be today. But I've heard that some of these problems have become worse since then. So I think what we see in the series could actually feel quite realistic for students today. And even when I was a student, we already have cases of school violence, students talking back to teachers, and parents getting too involved in their children's education.
Right, so it sounds like the drama isn't simply about fictional events, but about reflecting changing relationships between teachers, students, and parents. So we're going to talk more about this, but first, let's take a look at the screen. One of the biggest social conversations in Korea in recent years has been whether teachers have lost too much authority in the classroom. In a country where education remains a top priority, finding the right balance between maintaining order and ensuring fair discipline has become a growing challenge. The debate has intensified amid rising cases involving teachers facing complaints, legal disputes, and even severe classroom violence. So today on News Generation, we take a closer look at Korea's new support system that connects teachers affected by violations of their rights with dedicated officials, why such a system is being introduced, and what concerns remain about teachers' authority. Just as we saw in a video, concerns over teachers' rights have led to calls for stronger support systems, especially when educators face disputes or complaints alone. And one example is in Gyeonggi-do province, which has introduced a new system aimed at providing teachers with more immediate and comprehensive support when their rights are violated. So Hayo, can you tell us more about how this new support system plans to safeguard teachers' rights?
Yes, so Gyeonggi province is home to about 1/3 of Korea's students and schools. And the Gyeonggi Office of Education is now introducing a new system called Teacher Rights Protection Officers. The idea is to make sure teachers do not have to deal with these cases on their own. When a teacher's rights are violated, an officer will be assigned to the teacher and provide support throughout the process. That includes helping with the initial response, joining investigations, providing legal advice, offering psychological support, and following up after the case. The goal is to bring together support that was previously spread across different organizations, so teachers can get help more quickly and more directly. The officers will include former and current educators, as well as professionals with experience in areas such as law, medicine, and policing.
So the goal is not only to respond after incidents happen, but also to make sure teachers have someone to turn to throughout the entire process. But the push for this kind of dedicated support comes amid growing concerns that many teachers are struggling with increasing pressure inside and outside the classroom. So why has a dedicated support system become something that people are talking about? Why has it become so necessary?
We can gain a better understanding once we actually find out where teachers receive most stress in classrooms. So let's take a look at the screen. According to the OECD's Tally's 2024 survey, the biggest source of stress for South Korean middle school teachers was actually dealing with complaints from parents and guardians of students. The survey also found that Korean teachers were more likely to report having experienced threats or even verbal abuse from students compared to the OECD average. Now, in fact, 1 in 5 teachers have actually said that they would actually like to leave the profession. Again, highlighting how demanding the current situation is in the teaching environment here in Korea. And perhaps the biggest concern is that teachers say they spend too much time and energy, solving these disputes and trying to deal with the complaints from the parents and the guardians, rather than actually teaching in the classrooms, where for teachers, their main role is to actually just to teach, educate, and to kind of interact with students in the most, pleasant, fun way. And that's how I grew up back in Australia. But nowadays, we're seeing more conflict arise. And teachers are dealing with so much stress, actually trying to solve these issues, because it doesn't end in the classroom. It goes all the way to the parents. And the parents come back to the school, talk with the principals, and the matter gets actually worse even for teachers. So just like what we saw from the survey, it shows that clearly South Korean teachers actually suffer a lot of stress from the parents' complaints, and of course from the verbal and physical abuses from students as well.
So these figures highlight how the role of teachers has expanded beyond teaching, with many now spending significant time dealing with conflicts and complaints. And this is not just a concern reflected in surveys. Many educators say these challenges are continuing in real classrooms today. So specifically, what kinds of teachers' rights violations are happening, or what are we seeing in classrooms these days, Hayun?
Yes, so teacher rights violations are still happening in real classrooms today. So according to the Gyeonggi Institute of Education, the number of cases officially recognized as violations of teachers' educational activities has exceeded 1,000 for 2 consecutive years. And according to a teachers' union survey, about 80% of teachers said they worry that they could face a child abuse accusation. There have also been some unusual cases. For example, in May, a teacher received a complaint because a parent said the teacher did not take enough photos of their child during a school trip. In another case, a student hit a teacher in the face with a hand holding a mobile phone after the teacher told the students to stop playing games during class. There was also a case where a teacher was reported for child abuse simply for opening the classroom windows because a student felt cold. So these cases show how difficult it can be for teachers to balance their educational duties with concerns from students and parents.
So these cases show why discussions over teacher protection remain ongoing, but they also raise questions about how to protect teachers' authority while ensuring teachers' rights are respected. So to hear more about the realities teachers face on the ground, we're going to speak with an educator currently working in Korea. And that conversation is coming up right after break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
We're joined now by Seoyoung, a teacher in Korea, to share her perspective from the classroom. So hello, thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So, Seoyoung, how do you and your colleagues feel about having these dedicated officers to help protect teachers' rights and also authority?
It felt a bit surreal at first to see that dedicated officers for teachers' rights are no longer just in dramas, but in reality now. At the same time, it made me feel pretty sad, because it reminded me how serious this issue has become. Because dedicated roles like this usually only get created when a problem gets severe and happens way too often. I think it's telling us how much our education system is struggling right now. And of course, we also have expectations for its effect too.
I do really agree with you. My next question to you is, what challenges do teachers have when communicating with today's students and parents?
First of all, teachers need to be really careful with students, because people are so sensitive about students' rights nowadays. Teachers are worried that if something goes wrong, they'll have to take all the blame alone. So naturally, they become very hesitant. They just hope no problems happen and try not to get too deeply involved. And at the same time, many parents view teachers as service providers. They try to fit the teacher to their own child's needs and constantly evaluate them. Often they think they know their own child best. Well, that may be true, but when it comes to school education, they still need to trust teachers and leave things to them. So, and I think it's easy for parents to forget that teachers are also human and like they have limits too. And on top of this, like teachers simply don't have enough time or mental space to deal with these demands. When teachers are burned out, it's almost impossible to build deep, meaningful connections with either students or parents. And because of this, there is a lack of real trust or deep connection. So basic consideration and healthy boundaries are ruined. So this causes misunderstandings, conflicts, and hard feelings. And usually teachers have to deal with all this stress by themselves. So I think these are the biggest challenges teachers face when communicating with students and teachers and parents today.
Thank you. And this is our last question, actually. So what changes are needed to better protect teachers, and how do you hope this system will help?
First, I think how people think about teachers needs to change. We need to have a clear idea of a teacher's actual role, boundaries, and we need to legally define the scope of a teacher's responsibility. Next, reducing teachers' heavy workload to give them some mental breathing room is truly necessary. Also, if some problem happens, it should be much easier for teachers to get protection right away. It's unreasonable to expect a teacher to handle entire process alone because they're already too busy and already dealing with the difficult conflict. This will cause them extra stress and will delay the problem solving. So through the system, I expect everyone to come to a clear understanding of each other's rights and roles. And I hope dedicated experts take full charge of these cases and simplify the entire process. If specialists handle the investigation and response, problems can be solved much faster and more properly. I recently watched a news video about these dedicated officers, and there was one comment that caught my attention. It was that unless we teach them with violence, like in the drama, this problem will never be solved. Yeah, that hit hard, but violence can't be involved in reality. And also we know that punishment is not the ultimate goals. Instead, I hope the system in the end serves as the effective preventive measure. And I hope that eventually teachers, students, and parents build mutual trust and respect so that one day we won't even need this kind of external protection anymore.
I also hope that actually leads to real changes, because I can only imagine how frustrating it must be when parents, you mentioned earlier that some parents do feel like they know what's best, which makes it really difficult, I can imagine, for teachers to actually do their job. So, I mean, thank you so much for sharing a snapshot of what it's like on the ground. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
So we just heard from an educator in Korea about the challenges teachers face today, from changing relationships with students and parents to the need for stronger support systems in schools. So while many welcome the idea of providing teachers with dedicated support, some say the success of the system will depend on whether it leads to actual meaningful changes in the classroom. So what are the current expectations and also the current concerns surrounding the system?
So experts are generally positive about having education office provide more direct support to teachers. But they also say that protecting teachers' rights must go hand in hand with protecting students' right to learn and maintaining trust with parents. After the 2023 incident at Seoul Elementary School, which raised serious concerns about parental pressure and teachers' rights, there were growing calls for stronger protection for teachers, and several new measures were introduced. But there have still been concerns that teachers have not felt enough change in their everyday work. And because this new system mainly provides support after a problem occurs, there are concerns that it may not become a fundamental solution unless it has enough staff and the authority to actually help teachers.
So while the system is seen as a step forward, some believe protecting teachers' rights must go hand in hand with protecting students' learning rights and rebuilding trust with parents. But Korea is not alone in facing challenges related to teacher authority and classroom management. We can also do it with learning from how other countries are doing. So how are they protecting teachers' rights over there in other countries?
Countries like the United States, Germany, and Japan have also faced, verbal abuses, threats, or other forms of, kind of violence against teachers. But many have put legal and institutional safeguards in place to protect the teachers and the teachers' rights when actually they have to carry out their duties of teaching students. So in some states in the US, for example, assaulting or threatening a teacher can carry tougher penalties compared to those of ordinary citizens who actually violate a similar case. Now, in Germany, the general consensus is that every party involved in the education system have to be treated equally and should be balanced out. So while students have their free right to actually, express their feelings against teachers or if they feel violated or their rights taken away, teachers as well, they are actually protected by institutional mechanisms to protect them. And they also run programs aimed at preventing violence against school staff as well. Now, meanwhile, in Japan, they have systems in schools which, and also the local education authorities, where they work together to deal with these kind of complaints from teachers rather than leaving teachers as individuals on their own to actually handle them alone. So while no country can completely eliminate violations of teachers' rights, the focus is making sure teachers do not have to deal with these problems on their own. And the broader goal is to build a system where schools and education authorities stand behind teachers, allowing them to just purely focus in the classroom to the students of actually educating and teaching them rather than spending, like I said, all their time and effort and stress into actually dealing with complaints from students and from parents alike.
Right, so these examples show that while teachers' rights violations remain a challenge worldwide, many countries are beginning to focus on ensuring teachers are not left to handle conflicts alone. So now, shifting back to Korea, attention is now turning to how this new system will be implemented and whether it can bring lasting change to schools. So, Hyle, what's next for efforts to protect teachers' rights and what challenges still remain that people have to solve?
So I think the fact that more than 35 people applied for every position in the recruitment process itself shows actually how much attention this issue is getting now. So Gyeonggi-do province is leading the way, and other regions, including Chungcheongnam-do, are also considering introducing a similar system. If this awareness continues to spread and more regions adopt the system, I think protecting teachers' rights could become more of a reality. And even applicants who were not selected for the official positions will be able to take part in a citizen teacher rights protection group, helping to expand the network for protecting teachers' rights. So I think the next step will be seeing whether this system can actually make teachers feel that they are no longer dealing with these problems alone.
Right, and that goes along with what our Zoom guest Hoyoung said earlier about how she feels like she wants to feel like she's protected so she can actually do her job. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
Introducing a new system like this with a clear goal of supporting teachers and making them feel that they're not alone in these kind of disputes is definitely, we're heading in the right direction. But obviously it's going to take time to see whether it's really effective or not, because through a lot of trial and error where these cases actually arise in the real case scenarios. However, this may at the same time cause backlash from parents and students saying that, oh, they're taking away our rights and like the government and the educational system is supporting the teachers rather than us. So at the end of the day, I think taking a step back and just really realizing where each party in the education system, the duties they actually play. So for example, teachers, they're there to just educate the students, to teach them, to teach them all the things they need to learn at school, whereas students should be there to actually learn from teachers, not to fight back or retaliate, and to cause any trouble. And parents should let their kids know that they're going to school to learn, and they're going to make mistakes, and they might get in trouble, but that's all part of growing up and learning from school.
Right.
So if everyone can kind of understand each other's roles and not kind of step over that line, because once you do, that's when trouble happens. And obviously we've heard from a real teacher in the field, her level of stress comes from these kind of areas where parents kind of get too involved, maybe become too sensitive.
Right.
But at the end of the day, these teachers are also precious sons and daughters of their own parents. So having that kind of mutual respect will have, I guess, a positive effect in public schools, not just public schools, schools in Korea moving forward.
And going off of what you said earlier about how I feel like parents also have a big role in mitigating this situation, because kids will probably look at their parents, how their parents are treating the teachers as well. So yeah, hopefully, I mean, this is just in Gyeonggi-do province, but hopefully if it works, we'll see it happen in other areas in Korea as well. So protecting teachers and protecting students should never be competing goals, which is why the real challenge is building a classroom where both can thrive. Teacher authority, student rights, and parental trust all play a role in a healthy education system. And finding the right balance between them may be the most important lesson of it all. So that brings us to the end of today's episode of New Generation. But Newshan will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Hayu.
Thank you for having me today.
And also Kyun.
It's always a pleasure.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this was a reminder that building better classrooms begins long before the first lesson starts. We are News Generation.